Getting close to that time of year, days like this certainly make me think of summer. I don't know about you, but I've been loving this great, beautiful weather that we've been enjoying, all these wonderful warm days. I had somebody thanking me for bringing it from Kansas. I said, I don't know if I can take credit for that. But it certainly does kind of put me more in the mindset of Kansas, that's for sure, being nice and warm. Usually this time of year we've had some even 90-degree days. It seems like very rare, but it occasionally can happen that way. It was 22 years ago that we bought a house in Kansas City, Missouri that had a swimming pool in it. And I was like, wow, the in-ground swimming pool, diving board, the whole 9 yards. Never owned a home with a swimming pool. I didn't even learn to swim until I was 27 years of age. Grew up in landlocked Kansas, and so, water and all that kind of stuff. So I was just wanting to know, I'm not going to ask how many of you swim. What I want to know is how you get into a swimming pool when you do swim. Okay?
Cannonball!
Cannonball! Yeah, there you go. We got at least one cannonball. All right. In other words, none of this, how many of you know, like we start at the shallow end, just kind of get a foot in, and, okay, I see your hands, it's like, then you get down maybe to the knees, and it's like 20 minutes later, you finally maybe get to waist deep, and eventually you go all the way under, so a little bit more timid. The reason I bring that up is because our text today talks about some people who basically were a little timid on stepping into some water, and it made me think of summer, made me think of swimming and all that kind of stuff. But I want to relate it to how we take steps of faith. When God asks you to take a step of faith, I mean, you just, like Jeremy, you just cannonball, you just dive right in like, yeah, let's go for it, God. Let's just, join, jump out into this new adventure. Or you're more one of those that, like, you want to test the water a little bit, make sure that God's going to be with you as you go through it. Even though we know He will, but it's like, I'm just not so sure that I really want to take that big giant leap of faith. And sometimes He requires faith, steps of faith. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story today about a guy by the name, true story, his name is Jimmy Wayne. I don't know if you follow country and western music at all. If you do, you may have heard this name before, but Jimmy Wayne never knew his father. His mom spent more time in prison than out of prison. When he was 12 years old, his mother was released from jail, and she immediately took up with a troublemaker. It seemed like she just kind of attracted those kinds of individuals in her life. And when they got out of jail, they loaded Jimmy into the back seat of an Oldsmobile Delta 88. For a year, the car was his home. He would later recall, he said it had bench seats and it always smelled like body odor. His mom and her boyfriend would drive from town to town, always just trying to avoid the police whenever possible. After many months, after many miles of drifting, they dumped Jimmy off in a parking lot at a Pensacola, Florida bus station and drove away. 13 years of age. No home, no future, no provision, hope. Unsure where to turn, he just began to kind of wander the neighborhood. And one day, he happened to spot an elderly gentleman who was working in a garage wood shop. He approached the elderly gentleman. He asked if the guy had any work for him. Well, the carpenter sized up this young boy, and he assessed him to be homeless, so he decided to give him a chance. The man introduced himself as Russell, and he immediately called into the house where his wife Bee to come out and join them. They showed Jimmy the lawnmower, how to operate it, and for several weeks, Jimmy would cut the couple's grass. He survived on the $20 a week that they gave him, and after some time, Bee approached young Jimmy and said, well, where do you live, young man? And initially he lied. because he had dealt with rejection so often, he was just afraid that if they found out that he was homeless, that one, they wouldn't let him work there anymore. But she eventually won him over and convinced him to tell the truth. And when he did, the couple made a decision to take this young boy in. They gave him his own bedroom, his own bathroom. They gave him a place at the dinner table. And that home became like heaven to young Jimmy. He got to take a hot bath each day. He ate hot meals. He even got to sit with the family in the living room and watch television together. Still, in spite of all their kindness, Jimmy refused to unpack his bag. What few belongings that he had were gathered in a plastic trash bag that he kept beside his bed, ready to bolt at a moment's notice whenever this family wised up and wanted him out of there. For several days, a plastic bag sat next to his bed. You see, Jimmy, you could say he was in the house, but he wasn't in the house. He was under the roof, but he wasn't under the promise. He was with the family, but he didn't believe that he really was a family member, and certainly didn't behave like a family member. After several additional conversations over several meals and some heart-to-heart talks, Russell finally convinced Jimmy to unpack his bag and to move in. Why did I share a story like that? Because there are some of you who still haven't unpacked your bag and moved in. Perhaps you question your place in God's family. Maybe you fear His impending rejection of you. Maybe you wrestle with doubt-laced questions like, am I really in God's family? Will He really accept me no matter what I've done or what I will do? As long as... What if He changes His mind one day? I mean, He has reason to do so, because I keep messing up. The old 3 steps forward, 2 steps back mentality. I mean, sometimes we just press on only to fall back again into old patterns of behavior, old habits, and we say, why does this keep happening? And so we resolve that we won't do it again, and yet somehow we stumble and we question, will God turn me out? You look at life, it seems like it's all too prevalent. Boyfriends dump girlfriends, girlfriends dump boyfriends. Coaches cut players from teams, employers businesses downsize, employers have to cut employees, and teachers expel students from school for a number of reasons, and sometimes parents give birth to children only to abandon them at bus stations like young Jimmy. How do we know that God won't do the same with us? After all, He's holy. He's pure. He's righteous. Spotless. We are anything but that. Is it safe to unpack our bags? God answers that question at the cross. When Jesus died, the heavenly vote was forever cast in your favor and mine. He declared for all to hear, this is my child. You are my child, He says. My covenant will never change. You see, when we're living in the promised land, we believe that. We know that to be true. We trust God's hold on us more than we trust our own hold on God. We place our trust in the finished work of Christ. We deeply believe that we are delivered from the power of darkness and conveyed into the kingdom of the Son, Colossians 1:13. We know that Jesus was serious when he said, "My children shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand." John 10:28. Because of what Christ did, we can point to Calvary as the ultimate evidence of God's commitment to us. You know, the followers of Joshua had a similar experience. They weren't looking to a hill. They were looking to a river. Not to Calvary, but to the Jordan. The miraculous crossing convinced them that God was in their presence. In fact, in Joshua chapter 3, verse 10, Joshua said to the children of Israel, "By this crossing you shall know that the living God is among you." You know, during most months of the year, the Jordan River was a fairly calm, tame, if any river can be tame, river. 30 to 40 yards wide, about 6 feet deep at its deepest point. Most of us could get across it without too much trouble. But according to verse 15 in chapter 3, Joshua received his orders to go across the Jordan during the season of harvest. Well, it just so happened during that time of the year that the Jordan River would swell to over a mile wide as the snowmelt came down from Mount Hermon, causing this swollen current to just tumble and roll as you could be expected when it's above flood stage. And it was at that time when God called the children of Israel to cross over into the Promised Land. No small task for millions of people. But in chapter 1, verse 2 that we looked at a few weeks ago, God told Joshua to go over this Jordan, you and all this people. He didn't say, "I just want the best swimmers to go across, the ones that won't have any trouble," or he said, "I want everyone, man, woman, boy, girl, from the oldest to the youngest, to go across this river." Just think about that for a moment. 2 million people. 2 million. Cross this river. I don't know if I'd been Joshua, I probably would have bolted that command. But there was this process that was set in motion. Chapter 3, where we're spending our time this morning, very first verse, it says that Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Acacia Grove and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they crossed over. So, just to set the scene for you, 2 million people on the banks of the Jordan River set up camp on the eastern side of the river. For 3 days now, they wait, and they watch the waters carry debris. Perhaps some trunks of trees that have fallen in, some deadfalls, that come in there, the snags, if you will. For 3 nights, they slept or tried to sleep, listening to the endless rush of water in the dark. 3 days, plenty of time to ask a lot of questions, like how in the world are we going to get across this river? Are we going to use a boat? Are they calling in special forces? Dropping a bridge in place for us? How are we going to get across? On the 3rd day, the answer came. Verse 2. Officers went throughout the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, "When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it." Okay. Now, Ark of the Covenant wasn't the same thing as Noah's Ark, so don't think we got a big boat going on here. The Ark of the Covenant was a small rectangular box commissioned by God that contained a trio of Hebrew artifacts. Within that box was a jar containing some unspoiled manna, the food that they had eaten every single day for 40 years as they wandered in the wilderness. Also in that box was Aaron's rod, or Aaron's staff, the one that had budded when it was put in there with all the rest of them. So that was put in there. But But perhaps the most sacred, the most holy thing that was in that box are what we call the Ten Commandments. 2 stone tablets that had had the very finger of God etched on this stone. That was in the box. On top of that box was this heavy golden plate called the mercy seat. It served as the lid to this chest. 2 gold cherubim with outstretched wings faced each other and looked down on the golden lid. The dwelling place of God was between those 2 angels, those cherubim. So when God says, I want you to follow the ark, He's literally saying to them, I want you to follow me. In other words, it was God who led the way, not soldiers, not Joshua, not engineers and their plans or special forces and their equipment. When it came time to pass through the impassable waters, God's plan was simple. Trust me. Follow me. And the people did. At the close of the 3 days, there was a stirring in the Hebrew camp. A chosen band of priests, robed in white, walked toward the river. They carried the ark with the acacia poles that ran through the corner rings and set it on their shoulders. People stepped out of their tents. They watched in silence as priests inched their way down the terrace bank until they got close to the bank of the Jordan River. The only sound that could be heard was the rushing water going by. As they approached, the water showed no sign of stopping. 50 feet away. 40. 30. 20. The water rushed on unimpeded. 10 feet. 5 feet. Until they got right to the edge of the water. Now, Scripture doesn't even try to hide their fear. I love it because it says in verse 15, as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped, catch that? Dipped into the edge of the water. Dipped in the edge of the water. They didn't go running like, all right, here we go, let's go, guys. They didn't do the Jeremy Cannonball into the water. They did. But the edge of the water. It was the smallest of steps. But with God, the smallest step of faith can activate the mightiest of miracles. Think about it. As they touched the water, the flow stopped. As if someone had just shut off the main water valve. The waters, which came down from upstream, stood still and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zaratan. That's verse 16. Now, I want you to realize Zaratan happens to be 30 miles upstream from where they've been camping. 30 miles. You see, in my imagination, I guess I've been influenced by Hollywood a little bit here. I mean, if you've ever watched The Ten Commandments, Charlton Heston, what is that thing, like 50-something odd years old now, that movie? They show it every year at Easter. But remember when the children of Israel are leaving Egypt, they cross the Red Sea, and you see these walls of water, on each side as they're going through kind of this little narrow alley. Well, no, this is 30 miles. The water's been shut off. A 30-mile stretch. None of this like wandering through, everybody single file. No, this like, let's spread out, let's get across this thing as quickly as we can. That's what God did. He wanted them to cross quickly in mass, and they did. All Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the people had crossed completely over the Jordan, verse 17. All Israel crossed over on dry ground. The men, the women, the children, the feeble, the forceful, the believers, the doubters, the faithful, those that murmured and kind of swore under their breath. I mean, everyone made it across. That riverbed might as well have been concrete because no wagon wheels got stuck, no feet got damp, no robes got wet. As they stood on the western shore after crossing, there was no mud on their sandals, nothing. God did for them what they could not do for themselves. Amen. Now imagine for a moment the emotions that are going through the children of Israel once they get on the other side. I mean, when your favorite team wins the championship, do you ever yell at the TV and celebrate and shout and jump up and down? I think it was a couple years ago when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and everybody's probably like high-fiving in the room and like whooping and hollering. Well, that's the scene I'm picturing, like euphoria. They're just amazed at what's just happened. I mean, we went from flood stage to no water present for like a 30-mile stretch, and we get across this dry riverbed, and we're like, God, you're amazing. I can't believe what you've done here, God. High-fiving and praising God and everything else. I mean, they would have been brimming with confidence at this point. I mean, did they not stand in awe of what God did? I mean, if God could turn a raging river into a red carpet, then watch out, Jericho, you're next. We're coming for you. Joshua told them, by this crossing you shall know that the living God is among you. Now they couldn't lose. Put it in something I can understand a little better. It's like a bicycle race downhill with a tailwind at your back. While everybody else is going uphill. Not going to lose that one. They had every right to celebrate. Guess what? So do we. So do we. For Joshua's people, the assurance came as they stood on dry ground looking back at the Jordan River that they had just crossed. For us, our assurance comes as we look back at the finished work of Christ and His cross. The river that we could not cross, Jesus crossed for us. The tide that we could not face, He faced it for us. For all of us. The young, the old, the middle-aged, the courageous, the timid. Our deliverance is complete. Like the Hebrews, we have been dramatically delivered. But the question is, are we deeply convinced? Are we deeply convinced? Remember, the Hebrews could have entered the Promised Land 40 years earlier. Could have been there a long time ago. The prior generation had experienced a miracle every bit as grand. They crossed the Red Sea. They didn't just cross the Red Sea. They had been in Egypt when God sent the plagues and they saw all these miraculous signs that brought about their deliverance in the first place. You're like, what were they thinking? You see, the difference between the first crossing and the second crossing is that Joshua's generation paid attention to God. They believed Him. They were convinced that God was with them. Let the cross convince you that God is with you. Be settled about God's faithfulness to you. Amen. In fact, in Psalm 112, verse 7, the writer describes a person of faith with these words. This is out of the Living Bible. It says, he is settled in his mind that Jehovah will take care of him. Let me read that again. I mean, think about this. He is settled in his mind. His mind is fixed. Her mind is fixed. It's set. It's done. It's settled that Jehovah will take care of them. Life has a lot of unanswered questions. But God's ability to save does not need to be one of them. Let this issue be settled once and for all. Just look at yourself. There's no mud on your sandals. There's no water on your robes. There's no sin on your record. There's no guilt attached to your name if you have asked for forgiveness. So let there be no doubt in your heart. For if God did not spare his own Son, but gave him for all of us, as Romans 8:32 reminds us, will he not also give you all that you need to live a promised land life? Join the chorus of the confident and declare that I am convinced that nothing can separate us from God's love. Indeed, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord. Romans 8:38 and 39. So rest in your redemption. The past is past. The future is bright. God's word is secure and sure. His work is finished. You are a covenant partner with God. A full-fledged member of this Promised Land Development Program. The Jordan is behind you. It's that cross behind me. Canaan is before us. A new season awaits. You know, back to the earlier story, Jimmy Wayne did find a new season of life. He took his place in the family. He went on to get an education, and he found a career as a country music singer and songwriter. But his best days began the day he decided to unpack his bags and become a part of the family. Your best days to come. When you choose to become a part of the family. When you unpack your bags and settle. When you believe the promises of God's word. What Christ has done on your behalf. Father, thank you so much for allowing your Son to die in our place. We marvel at such an incredible gift of grace and mercy, unconditional love. Sometimes, Father, even though we know maybe in our hearts and our heads that that's indeed true and we do believe it, yet that there are those moments of doubt, especially when we mess up, when we fall short once again, when we revert back to patterns of behavior that we maybe thought were settled long ago. Forgive us. But may we never doubt your love for us. May we never lose sight of the fact that you allowed your Son to pay the death penalty for all sin, past, present, and future. Father, may we just have it settled once and for all. May we just have that firm assurance of your great love for us. It's in Jesus' name. Think about your own life for just a moment. I mean, I love the story of Jimmy Wayne because I can relate to this. I'm one of those kind of strange people that if I'm in a motel for more than one night, I unpack my bag and put my clothes in like the dressers, and you're probably thinking, that's just icky. You don't know what's been there before you, but I do. I move in. I don't care how short a time frame it is. I'm also one of those strange people that I always fold my dirty clothes to repack them into the suitcase, you know. Sorry. I tell you way too much. But I mean, think about unpacking your bags. I mean, are there times in life when maybe you just haven't really felt settled into the family of God? When you're still hanging on to some of those doubts? I mean, do you have doubts sometimes about God? Has there ever been times when you said, you know, I'm tired of asking for forgiveness for this? I think, could he forgive me again? Are there some things you need to embrace about God's character in order to feel safe in unpacking your bags? Settle in. I mean, the fact that the Hebrews could have crossed over the Promised Land 40 years earlier, they missed their opportunity because they doubted God. Have there been opportunities that you kind of look back in hindsight and go, man, I missed that opportunity because of doubt, because of unbelief? You know, most of the people probably in this room saw the play, Time to Revive. That chronicled the life of Jesse, a young man who had missed countless opportunities in his life. And fortunately for Jesse, he got the second chance. Kind of go back and make amends for all those missed opportunities. I believe that God today is giving you that opportunity. Maybe that second chance to make up for missed opportunities, for those times when you doubted and you didn't act in faith, you didn't take that step of faith, when you were more content to just sit on the side of the pool instead of getting into the pool.